unceded land of the Spokane people, and that these lands were once the major trading center for the Spokanes as they shared this place and welcomed other area tribes through their relations, history, trade, and ceremony. We also want to acknowledge that the land holds the spirit of the place through its knowledge, culture, and all the original peoples since time immemorial. As we take a moment to consider the impacts of colonization, may we also acknowledge the strengths and resiliency of the Spokanes and their relatives. As we work together, making decisions that benefit all, may we do so as one heart, one mind, and one spirit. We are grateful to be on the shared lands of the Spokane people and ask for the support of their ancestors and all relations. We ask that you recognize these injustices that forever change the lives of the Spokane people and all their relatives. We agree to work together to stop all acts of continued injustices towards Native Americans and all our relatives. It is time for reconciliation. We must act upon the truths and take actions that will create restorative justice for all people. Adopted by Spokane City Council on the 22nd day of March, 2021. I'd now like to introduce a bright young member of our community, Miss Ellie Johnston of Girl Scout Troop 1935.
Good evening. I'd like you to stand and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now I'd like to introduce our moderator, Professor Emeritus of Gonzaga Law School, James McCurdy.
Well, thank you, Ellie Johnston. And how about Louis Charbonneau? And good evening and welcome to the debate featuring the candidates that are vying for the open congressional seat in Washington's 5th Congressional District. We welcome not only our audience here at the Moran Prairie Library, but those viewers who are also watching on community-minded TV, that's Xfinity Cable Channel 14, and those that are joining us on the simulcast on tvw.org. We want to particularly recognize and thank the Republican and Democratic chairpersons from 6 different counties who have traveled to be with us here tonight. I am Jim McCurdy, and I'm honored to be chosen as the moderator for tonight's debate. I'm asked to say a few things about myself and my background, and I'll try to be short about this and probably depart from the script that we have, but I am a lawyer. And I graduated from the University of Texas in 1974 and traveled to South Dakota to practice law. Now that's another story. Some people find it amusing that I was licensed at 4:30 one afternoon and was the first attorney to argue in the South Dakota Supreme Court the next morning. A little bit different there. My career ended up including law school teaching at the University of South Dakota School of Law. And my family moved to Spokane so that I could create a natural resources and environmental law curriculum for Gonzaga University Law School in 1981. I taught several courses at Gonzaga, and one of the later ones that I developed was a sports law course that we'll perhaps talk about later. But we decided that Spokane was our home, and we have been here ever since. So I taught 30 years at Gonzaga, and I am emeritus there, but I also taught in other places, Vermont and Connecticut and San Diego, and internationally a few times. One of the things that I have done is to initiate back in 1990 a sports law casebook for law school use. Now I want you to know that the 10th edition is hot off the press, And it's right here. It's available for your reading pleasure. Send your money. Okay. Many of you may know me from the professional baseball activities. I led ownership groups with teams in the Northwest League and the Pioneer League as well, and was the president of the Pioneer Baseball League and commissioner for 26 years there. But much of my work in the community and around over the years is focused on mediation and facilitation of decision-making in issues that involve the public and multi-parties, always looking for a consensus-based type approach there. Thus, you can understand my excitement when I learned that Indivisible and many other diverse organizations and parties joined to collaborate in the formulation of the questions that are going to be presented at tonight's debate. I should be clear. I had no part in the forming of these particular questions, the drafting of them, or anything else, nor the process that's used. I'm just the person that's following the script. Enough about me. Hey, let's look at the format for tonight's debate. There are 4 sections, if you'll count with me. Okay. The first is just a regular old debate section. There will be a party from the Republican Party, an individual from the Republican Party, and one from the Democratic Party that will approach the podium. And they'll be asked a question, and then there will be a response. We all know that. The second section is a bit novel. It is called the rapid fire question section, in which all of the candidates will stand here in the front, and 2 organizations will give them 10 questions each. And they will respond by raising a hand if they agree, keeping it down if they do not, or if there's a mid-range answer, they will wave around the waist or at the middle area. Then we'll go to section 3, which is the second round of the debate. And that's just like the first round. There will be questions and there'll be responses. Then finally, we get to the 4th section, which we call the interest statement, where each one of our candidates tonight will be able to speak to you about whatever might be on their mind. Let's talk about the questions that have been formulated for the debate. And we should begin by describing the process that was used to come up with these questions. I'm going to read this partly so I don't leave anybody out. But the questions were drafted and designed by a geographically broad-based group of persons, and they're comprised of Republicans, independents, Democrats, media specialists, debate coaches, lawyers, members of the Braver Angels, members of Eastern Washington's Indivisibles, and they come from 12 counties comprising Washington's 5th Congressional District. Now, in the first debate round, there will be a Republican Party candidate that will step to one of the podiums, and there will be a Democratic Party candidate that will step to the other. The teams were selected in order of their prior FEC filing or filing for office in May. I'll introduce each with a brief bio that is provided by the candidate in the first round, and the 2 candidates have agreed as to which candidate shall answer the question first, with the other responding. And all timing has been agreed upon by all of the candidates in advance. Now, for the second question, the candidates will then reverse, and the responder will take the question, and then the person who answered the first question will respond. Our timekeepers, and let's give them a big hand if you would, are going to be Louis Charbonneau and Paula Landsberger. Would you guys wave? Now, these timekeepers are going to hold up a yellow paddle. You check me on this when there's 10 seconds remaining for each person's answer or response. And then there will be a red paddle that's raised when time is up. Is that right? And the individual speaking, you catch me if I'm wrong here, but the individual speaking will complete the sentence and then cease to speak. Now, if a candidate goes over the time limit, you catch me on this, that amount of time will be reduced from their interest statement at the end of the debate. And then the process continues until all the candidates have both answered and responded to questions. Now let's talk about that rapid fire section. Now this is a little bit new for most of us. The two organizations have constructed statements or questions that will be presented to all of the candidates that will be standing right up here in front of the podiums, standing shoulder to shoulder. The candidates are asked to signify, as I mentioned before, a positive response by holding up their right hand, or they can choose to keep it down for a negative response. And they may indicate a mid-range response, as I said before, by waving at the waist. Braver Angels, one of the organizations, will briefly describe its organizations and present its 10 inquiries. And then Eastern Washington Indivisibles will follow with a description of its organization and will provide 10 additional inquiries. Now, the second round of the debate, like I said, is just like the first section. And it'll be following this rapid fire round, and will feature 2 questions for each candidate. And again, the process is the same. So the final section of tonight's debate, let me mention that before we move on, is the interest statement, whereby each candidate has the opportunity to tell the audience about the candidate's aspirations, perhaps, or any other issue of preference, whatever the candidate most wants us to know. We should go over the rules. Everybody ready? Let me hear you say yeah. Yeah. Okay. The candidates know the rules they have agreed to for assuring civility and the orderly progression of the debate and what we expect there. But listen to this. There will be no audience applause or audible interjections for approval. There will be no negative indications of disgust or disagreement or any of that sort of thing. What you do have, and tell me, does everyone have one? You should have a red paper and a green paper. So the green paper, and check me on this, the green paper you hold aloft, is that right? Everybody hold them up. If you agree with a candidate's statement, and now hold the red paper up that shows you disagree with the candidate's statement. So you will not be heard, but you will be seen. We do this sometimes when there is audible action by the audience. We can't hear the last part of a candidate's answer. Also, it takes up time, and we're televised and will not be finished on time. And then we also have these expectations of civility that we add in here. I will now move to the moderators and timekeepers table. So if you would, while I'm moving down to my proper location, if you would give yourselves a round of applause for taking your time, making your efforts to become involved with all of the issues that affect each and every one of us today. So give yourselves a hand. Let us meet our candidates. We have Ms. Ann Marie Danimus. Secondly, we have Miss Carmela Conroy. Next, we have Mr. Matthew Brady Weldy. Then we have Mr. Rick Valentine Flynn. Give me on it, Rick. Welcome. And we have Mrs. Renee Holliday. But let's do this at this time before we begin. You've just already done it, but why don't we give a big round of applause for these individuals that are spending their time, their efforts to, again, take on the issues that confront each one of us, run for this congressional seat for the Washington's 5th Congressional District, and serve for the public good as they see it. Let's give them a round of applause. We really appreciate it. Okay. Ann Marie Danimus has organized and sponsored multiple community-focused events, as well as volunteering her time with numerous nonprofits, with special focus on domestic abuse, rape victim recovery, LGBTQ plus equal rights, the homeless, and the needs of children. Ann Marie, would you approach the podium? We call the Republican member and the Democratic member a team as they step forward to answer the questions. And Ann Marie's team member is Renee Holliday. Renee went to college for 6 years and studied engineering, wildlife biology, and macro sociology, the study of government and global governance structures with special focus on the Holocaust and eugenics. Welcome, Renee.
Thank you.
Question 1. It has to do with the issue of farming. The question: how would you get a current farm bill through this Congress? Ann Marie will be the person answering.
Protecting America's food supply is a matter of national security. And the first thing I would do to push the Farm Bill through is to make sure that everyone around me that I was speaking with understood that. Unfortunately, rural communities are losing ground and they're starting to lose faith. We went to Farm Aid last year. I sit on the Ag and Rural Caucus, and I helped out on my family's farm when I was a kid. Small farms, like small businesses, are the backbone of this nation. And we need to stress the importance of their support, and we need to eliminate factory farms. It affects the nutrition of our food, our economics. They are taking nutrition out and putting chemicals in. And 90% of food subsidies go to the top 10% of producers. I want a good, strong farm bill passed. It's not just about passing the bill. It's about making sure that we are putting the focus back on family farms. It's good for us, it's good for our nutrition, and it is good for rural communities. I will focus on regional production, keep R&D funded, fight pesticide resistance. We need to lower the cost of fertilizer, and we need to get back to regional distribution of our food. Thank you so much.
And thank you. Now Renee Holliday for a response.
As a UN researcher and the first one to write a book on Agenda 21 in the United States, I am well aware of all of the hyper-regulation that has been brought down to all of our farmers across the United States through Agenda 21, now Agenda 2150 programs. All of these programs have stifled farmers in a horrible way. I'm from a farming community. I grew up on farms, and I have a horse farm. So I'm very well familiar, as well as representing the property rights group and the water rights group, in defending people from these Agenda 21 programs where, gosh, even just at the Farm Bureau meeting this last week, there were several Farm Bureau board members that were facing losing all of their property by being fined from Department of Ecology. This is through over-regulation. So the farm bill that I would want to pass would seek to stick to constitutional law, to deregulate the farmer as much as possible, and to help the farmer by being able to buy more gas. I say that it's directly linked to being able to produce gas, to drill gas in the United States. It's directly linked to their affordability of being able to farm, because it's the price of gas right now that's wiping most of the Washington farmers out. Oh, was that my timer to say stop?
Yes,
I'm sorry. Okay. All right.
Yes,
All
thank
right.
you, Renee.
I wasn't sure about that. Thank you.
Question 2. The issue is firearms. What policies are called for to help make schools safe from the threats of gun violence?
To clarify, is that what policies are in existence, or which policies would you like to see me push?
What policies are called for in your mind?
I would like to see more funding go to anything that helps promote police, any kind of law enforcement. We need to up the amount of law enforcement, because gun violence is out of control, because there's not enough police to keep crime under control anymore. We have watched the last several years defund massive amounts of police departments and funding, which, what does that lead to? More crime. And so when you can't even get anybody to respond quickly to any of these school shootings, I mean, look what happened in Texas. My gosh, that was awful. It took them forever to respond. They're short-staffed. They're all short-staffed. How do you prevent crime if you have no police, right? Or very few police that are overworked and they can't even get there? How does anybody stay safe, let alone the schools? And I also would very much support any of the school staff being able to be armed as well in order to defend children.
Thank you, Ann Marie.
Well, I have a tremendous respect for police. They are not key in preventing violence, certainly not gun violence. The current statistics in the United States demonstrate the majority of people who die by gun are suicides. 43% are murders, and that would include our schools. You know, mental health is connected. Access to guns, if you have mental health issues, are connected. Having teachers with guns is one of the worst ideas I've ever heard. A lot of the times when, first of all, the cause of death, number one cause of death for children is guns. And a lot of times it's because they get a hold of them when they're not supposed to have them. And how a teacher is supposed to teach children and safeguard them from all of the things that they need to on a daily basis, look out for children who are undernourished, who are being abused, and at the same time, carry. That's an incredible responsibility. That's absolutely the wrong answer. What we need to do is provide a safer school environment by providing a safer community. I don't disagree with Ms. Holliday that we do need more policing. That includes community policing. It includes mental health outreach. It includes making sure that children have what they need, and those things that endanger them in society are stopped by the adults that surround them and raise them. Thank you.
And thank you, Ann Marie and Renee.
You're welcome.
The next team will be Carmela Conroy and Rick Valentine Flynn. For Carmela Conroy in office, she will prioritize the needs of Eastern Washington, protecting family farms, lowering health care and child care costs, and expanding care and benefits for veterans. She will work to bring down inflation and strengthen the supply chain by boosting American manufacturing and investing in skills and job training programs. She will restore individual freedoms by keeping politicians and justices out of private medical decisions. Her team member is Rick Valentine Flynn. Rick is a U.S. Air Force veteran, a VA caregiver for a disabled veteran, an author, and a member of the Spokane County Board. Coming from a diverse background, he's worked in construction, farming, food services, retail, hospitality, and retirement management. Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Carmela. The question will be for Carmela Conroy. It's question 3. The issue is defense. How do evolving threats, such as cyber attacks and terrorism, impact national security strategies and defense preparedness?
Thank you for that question, Professor. On September 11th, 2001, I was in a soundproof briefing room in Washington, D.C. I had just changed from a job where I was working as part of Secretary Powell's communications and briefing staff to a job where I was working trade-related intellectual property issues. And when our briefing ended and we opened up the door, we could hear that there was a fire alarm going off. And I could tell from the mood in the hallway and in the fire escape that this was not just an ordinary fire drill. People were genuinely alerted and concerned about what was going on. And I found out when I met one of my classmates that the September 11th attack was underway. We started leaving the area, and that was the beginning of a new era for American security. So our evolving threats in terms of what we once called the global war on terror, what we now know as interstate terrorism with non-state actors, happens both domestically as well as overseas. And it is incumbent upon all of us to pay attention to what's going on so that people do not use political violence to try to change our system and other systems, that we follow the UN and international laws of armed conflict and try to make a better world for all of us.
Rick?
As a military veteran, I know that our military is the most prepared for every situation in the world. The recent war in Ukraine has opened our eyes to a few of our shortcomings, and those mainly being advanced intelligence, of course, because heading off an attack ahead of time is always preferable. AI, drones, and frequency jamming technology have been the things that we've seen most decisive on the battlefield recently. These are areas that, as a country, we have started focusing on, but we need to focus more energy on. If we can identify threats and counter them with non-human casualties using AI and drones, we can save more lives while maintaining global peace and keeping the military might of our country having a influence on the rest of the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Carmelo. Question 4. The issue is national security. How do you propose balancing security and humanitarian concerns at our borders? Rick, you're first. Thank you.
Okay. Well, recently we've seen a huge spike in border crossings. That's in part due to the large number of climate refugees being generated around the world lately. We need to increase our border security while also allowing for skilled workers such as farm workers and ranchers to be allowed into the country so that we can maintain our agricultural production. The recent security bill that was voted down on the border security was actually a very strong bill. It gave an extra $20,000 to Border Patrol agents, $1.4 billion to Customs enforcements, $1.3 billion to TSA. It was a very strong bill, and I think we need to go back and revisit it, resurrect it in the House, and try to work together to prevent our politics from becoming the problem. If neither side ever has a win, then the entire country loses. So we need to work together and revisit the recent border bill that was shot down and approach it with a bilateral agreement.
Good.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Rick. Carmela, your response.
I agree with Rick. Our immigration policies are outdated and out of touch, and they do not align with our current needs. The administrative apparatus, the people that we need for border enforcement, the attorneys to process the cases, the administrative law judges to decide cases at the border are underfunded, and there are too few of them. Even better, we need to update our requirements with respect to visas so that we can get more people to come in to help our farmers get their crops in a timely manner. Ann Marie mentioned earlier that farming and food security is an element of national security. So is our border security. And so we need to have the people in place and the systems in place to get in as quickly and as effectively as possible the goods and the people that we want to have in, because we need them to contribute to our economy, and to keep out as quickly as possible the people and the things that we don't want to have coming in.
Okay. Thank you. We will now introduce Team 3. Again, thank you very much. Team 3 will be composed of Matthew Brady Weldy, and we welcome Renee Holliday to the podium.
Thank you.
Mr. Matthew Brady Weldy is a career in law, and where he is focused on justice and community safety. As a criminal prosecutor, he's focused on delivering justice for survivors of domestic violence and abuse. In this difficult arena, Matthew has seen the ugliness in this world, but even more, he's seen the courage and grit shown by incredible people who escape difficult situations. Those successes are inspiring and serve as a reminder that even the toughest problems have a solution. The experience of working as a prosecutor helped Matthew be grateful for the things that we have to be proud of and thankful for, and has helped prepare Matthew to tackle the toughest problems we still need to solve. Matthew is ready to get to work. His team member is Renee Holliday, who takes on communist and has written 2 congressional bills already that secure the border: ban electronic voting machines and mail-in ballots, stop child trafficking, and prohibit illegal aliens from voting. Renee Holliday. This is question 5. The issue is justice. What role does public policy play in addressing issues of racial and social injustice? And what reforms are necessary to ensure equality and fairness? Matthew, you will be the first person to answer, and then Renee, you will respond.
Thank you. Equality is everybody having a pair of shoes. Equity is everybody having a pair of shoes that fit. When it comes to racial and social justice, one reform that I would like to make and would try to accomplish as your representative would be to change the narrative from equality to equity. As a domestic violence prosecutor, when we have victims who escape violent relationships, in order to get into safe and healthy environments, they're at a disadvantage. They need some additional resources to level the playing field so that they can make that transition. That is equity in need. Earlier in my career, I worked with a tribal organization to build and maintain a domestic violence batterers program for Native Americans that was run through the tribal organization. This allowed Native American offenders to be able to receive their treatment in a more conducive and comfortable environment and made it more effective, which helped reduce violence in Native communities. That was equity in practice. As your representative, I would pursue a focus on equity to deal with problems similar to that, as well as problems such as inequality or inequity in access to food security, employment, and education. Thank you.
And thank you. Renee, your response.
Well, as you all know, or likely all know, I am a staunch Christian Republican, and I am very much of the belief that we're all created equal, and I am very much against any racial division at all. I love you all. I love black people, Oriental, Mexican, Latino, it doesn't matter to me. I don't care. So as far as I'm concerned, it's all equal from my viewpoint. And there is no race that I have to deal with in my opinions. It's all people, and I love people, and that's it, period. Beyond that, as a studier of communism, it is a tactic and tenet of communism to cause racial division in order to divide a nation. This is what we just saw happen over the past 10 years, because that's the UN's bottom line, is their charter is based on the Communist Manifesto. Did you all know that? And did you also know that communism is illegal in the United States according to Article 4, Section 4? And so absolutely no racism. Let's all cut out the communists' agenda. Let's get back to America the way it was before we were so horribly divided. I love people, and I want to see the divides quit. And if we just oust all of the illegal communist agenda being pushed by the United Nations and the CCP, the division will stop. And so we'll return once again back to traditional America, where it wasn't divided by race. We were all doing pretty darn well before the communist agenda went in to divide by race.
Thank you, Renee. Question 6. The issue is foreign affairs. How should the United States position itself in international relations? Renee, you will answer, and then Matthew, you will respond.
Well, first of all, I would like to see us get out of wars that we don't belong in. A huge percentage of our budget has gone to Ukraine in what is just a huge money laundering venture that is lining all of the pockets of people that are associated with Ukraine and keep pushing the funding of Ukraine. I'm absolutely against it. Our foreign policy should be to back our allies. One of our greatest allies has always been Israel. Ever since they returned to Israel in 1947 under Ben-Gurion, we have been staunch allies of Israel until just recently. And so if there's anything going on with our foreign policy, it should be to keep up those relationships with our long-term allies and not be involved in provoking Russia by trying to threaten the Ukraine to encourage them to join NATO. That was the whole thing, that Russia said, hey, if you guys do this, we've already made agreements with Ukraine that they can't join NATO. That's a huge threat. So I absolutely do not support any of that, and I support strong support of our allies, and especially Taiwan. Taiwan is just about ready to be pounced on in a very, very vicious way by China.
Thank you, Renee. Matthew.
Thank you. With regard to how the United States should position itself in international affairs, it's a difficult subject to try and explain in 90 seconds, but I'll sum it up as follows. The United States is the arsenal of democracy. We should position ourselves in foreign affairs that ways that support the spread of democracy and representative government throughout the world and oppose the spread of authoritarianism throughout the world. When it comes to authoritarianism, perhaps it is not a good approach to sit by and let authoritarian leaders expand their influence over greater percentages of the world's resources, such as all the fertilizer generated from Ukraine, which Vladimir Putin wants to take over. It is also probably not a good plan for, as Western democratic nations, led by the United States, to believe what authoritarians try to tell us. When they say things, unless there's a lot of proof to back it up, which there rarely is, don't believe what authoritarians tell you. We should start there. Thank you.
And thank you, and thank all. This is the conclusion of round one. And so I will now ask every candidate to please stand up and come to the front of the podiums as I introduce you to Sue Lonnie Madsen, who is the Red State Coordinator for Braver Angels, Washington.
Well, I am one of two state coordinators. Braver Angels has balanced leadership at every level. So I'm the red coordinator. We have a blue coordinator who's from the east side that's actually on the west side of the state. Sharman and I work together to spread the efforts of Braver Angels to increase civility in debate so that we can learn to disagree more accurately and advance our democracy by not getting into civil war. And that's why I appreciated the request to come and help with this debate and bring Braver Angels to light. So we have, the Braver Angels was founded in 2016 after the 2016 elections, or more specifically the reaction to the 2016 elections, when a group of people from both sides of the presidential ballot said, this country needs marriage counseling. And partly influenced by the fact that one of them was a licensed marriage counselor. So it has always worked at how do we work together, how do we communicate better. Braver Angels runs programs and workshops in better communication skills and opportunities for debates on contentious issues. You can find some of those debates on the contentious issues on our YouTube channel and find out more about the organization at braverangels.org. And I encourage you to check it out. If you like politics, if you are involved, this is a place to get involved and learn how to bring in others so that you can have those conversations that we all wish we could keep having and not back off from. So we decided to take our questions from a book that was written in 2012 by Jonathan Haidt, The Righteous Mind, Why Good People Are Divided by Politics and Religion. And in that book, author and social psychologist Jonathan Haidt applied moral foundations theory to analyze why we seem to talk past each other in ways that lead to that political gridlock that some of the answers have already mentioned. Moral foundations theory explores why we often see similarities in how people intuitively act out moral beliefs. And those intuitive beliefs are, if you watch a couple of toddlers, right, and there's a toy, and they already know, that's mine, it's not fair. They have those arguments before they've been taught. That's that moral intuition that we have about how the world should be. So moral foundations theory has 5 basic foundational areas. And each culture builds its own ethical system for prioritizing these 5 moral foundations. The theory is not about declaring one set of ethics or morals better than the other, but just to recognize that there is a difference in emphasis, and that's how come we can be talking past each other. So those foundation principles are balanced. There's care, harm, that's one pair, fairness, cheating, loyalty, betrayal, authority, subversion, and purity, disgust. And we can be more attracted to one of those pieces of the foundation driving us than the other. So we're going to take 10 out of a 32 question questionnaire, take 10 of those questions for these folks And it's really simple. It's one of those kinds of tests where you can take and you rate yourself and you can see how you do, and I encourage you to do that later. But right now, I'm going to turn the page so I can get to my questions. Okay. So, to the candidates, there are no right or wrong answers. It's just a gut reaction. It's life experience is really how, and recognizing how your life experience brings you to this point in your career. So this is where you have to say right hand up. Everybody practice this. Right hand up means you agree. Keeping right hand down is a nope. And if you're unsure, yeah, you can, wavering is wavering, right? And then keep that up until we get to the next question is asked. It says wait to the count of 5. 1,000, just hold it up for 5 or hold it down for 5. We'll go to the next question. So there are a total of 10 statements taken from the Moral Foundation's questionnaire, but we're going to do a warm-up question first of all. So here is the warm-up question. When deciding if somebody is right or wrong about sports, how important is it to know if they root for the Cougars or the Huskies at the Apple Cup? Okay, so now we had the warm-up question. These all go along, the first 5 go with that same setup. When deciding if somebody is right or wrong, okay, how important is it to you to know whether or not someone suffered emotionally? When deciding if someone, we've never tried this before, so you're helping us figure this out. When deciding if somebody is right or wrong, having a conversation, how important is it to you to know that someone has suffered emotionally, their emotional state?
That's not a yes or no question.
No, and how important is it to you?
So if it's important, I put my hand up.
You put your hand up.
Yes.
If it's important to know if they've suffered emotionally, you put your hand up.
Okay, can you ask the question again, please?
All right, we'll try this again. This is a warm-up for everybody. When deciding if somebody is right or wrong, how important is it to know whether or not someone suffered emotionally? Okay. How important is it to know whether or not someone acted unfairly? Okay. All right. How important is it to know whether or not someone did something disgusting? Okay. Yeah. Like I said, there's no right or wrong. It's kind of a gut reaction thing. How important is it to know whether or not an action caused chaos or disorder? And then the last of this first section, how important is it to know whether or not someone's actions showed love for his or her country? Okay. All right, so that's the first set. Those were about, if you're talking to someone else. This is 5 more statements. These are a little different. These are more about how you feel about things, not how you're evaluating somebody else's statement, but how you feel about things. Okay. Raise your right hand if it's important, not important, if it's not important to you. But if it's really important to you, put your hand up. If it's not important, that's fine. And if it depends, that's that waiver. So, first statement rather. Chastity is an important and valuable virtue. Okay, well, adding emphasis on the end there. Second statement, I am proud of my country's history. Okay. Third statement, men and women each have different roles to play in society. Okay. Fourth statement, I think it's morally wrong that rich children inherit a lot of money while poor children inherit nothing. And the fifth statement, compassion for those who are suffering is the most crucial virtue. Most crucial. Well, then it sounds like you need to do this because you're asking lots of clarifying questions.
For children that are suffering?
For anyone.
Oh, okay.
For anyone, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And obviously, there's lots of nuance to all those situations. But if you go, and I encourage the audience as well, like I said, the complete test is 32 questions. This is just a small sample. And I thank you all for playing along as we try this out, trying to add a little more, an intermission to the debate. You can find that quiz at moralfoundations.org. And you can take that yourself. There's actually a self-scoring kind of test there. And you can kind of see, and there's some interesting readings there as well that can introduce you to how your point of view is shaped by your experience, but also let you maybe expand your view of how somebody else's experience is shaping their point of view. That's how you can get past that talking past each other. So now I want to thank all of you, and but stay right there because I'm going to introduce Sammy Perry, and we're trying this with 10 questions from the sponsors, and Indivisible, as the sponsors of this, have the opportunity to write their own 10 questions. Sammy Perry is a local citizen who cares deeply about this country. How many people care deeply about this country? Thank you. And wants to ensure that every voter has a chance to see the candidates who are running and make decisions about who will best represent all of us. We have about half here. I have to tell you that I have a lot of sympathy for the organizers because trying to round up candidates is worse than herding cats, literally, and getting all their schedules to work out. I'm so glad you have a chance to hear this half. Seek out the others. There's plenty of time before the primary. And now I'm going to turn this over to Sammy, who's going to speak on behalf of Indivisible.
Thank you, Sulani. My questions are so much easier. So this won't be confusing at all. I want to talk a little bit about indivisible, though, for a minute. Indivisible means exactly what it says, incapable of being divided. Our country is indivisible. No past civil war or current, partisanship can truly divide us, so we must strive to work together. There is no one coming to save us and our democracy. It's up to us. We are the cavalry. So let's find out a little bit more about each other. So the questions I'm about to ask are gathered by the Eastern Washington Indivisible members. And they come from citizens that are concerned about their constitutional freedoms. So these questions are about circumstances that can confront you as an elected representative. So I'm going to ask the audience if you'll play along too. If you will raise your green card or your red card in agreement or disagreement as I read the questions. Okay, question number 1. Is bipartisan important in governing at the federal level? There we go. Question number 2. As a U.S. representative, will you listen to your constituents even if they don't look like you or think like you? Billions will be spent on this presidential election. Should we stop the influence of money in politics and ensure fair representation for all citizens? Well, that's kind of unanimous. Yeah. Okay. Number 4. If you are elected, when making a vote on legislation, will your constituents' concerns override party push? Good job. All right. Do you believe the current state of our democracy is in peril from disinformation, foreign interference, and lies told over and over on various platforms? All right. Question number 6. When this country built the freeway system in the 1950s, taxes were at When this country built the freeway system in the 1950s, taxes were at 90% of the very wealthy. Currently, corporations and the very wealthy pay less than their secretaries. Is this fair? Okay. Houselessness, we made that word up, is a greater problem now than it was during the Great Depression. The hedge funds are buying up homes for cash. Working people can't buy or afford rents. Is this a problem for the federal government that can help solve? Can the federal government help solve this problem? Number 8, Russia attacked Ukraine twice now. Once in 2014 and continually since 2022. By the U.S. supporting Ukraine, are we helping support our own security and protecting our country? I love those green cards. Okay, number 9. Social Security is a program that people pay into and earn benefits, like other insurance companies or other insurance programs. Once a citizen has paid into the Social Security program, do you believe they are entitled to their benefits? And last question. Do you agree that women are full citizens and have the right to make their own choices about reproductive health without government interference? Great job, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you for running. Thank you for all of your hard work and for answering those questions. Thank you. Back to you, Jim.
Thank you, Sammy. Let's hear it for Sammy and Sulani. And let's give it up for all of our candidates who will now be removed to your chairs, and we'll welcome the next team for round 2 of the debate. The next team will be Ann Marie Danimus and joined by Mr. Rick Valentine Flynn. Ann Marie Danimus has come to know and understand the economics and people of our region in a way that runs deep. She views this knowledge as a responsibility, one that inspires her to work hard to protect and encourage our special corner of the world. Ann Marie has never forgotten who she is or where her roots are planted. Her team member, Mr. Rick Valentine Flynn, has completed multiple degrees in sustainability and environmental science with a focus on environmental agriculture. Rick is actively working, and turn the page, on development of new farming practices designed to optimize water use while minimizing the need for pesticides and nutrient additives. Ann Marie will field the question, and then Rick will respond. It is question 7. The issue is health care. What measures can be taken to improve health care access for underserved communities, both in urban and rural areas?
Over 500,000 Americans go broke or bankrupt every year due to a major illness, and I was one of them. After surviving a double transplant, I came out broke but alive. And I'm here to do something about it. It's part of the reason that I am running for Congress. This country needs an affordable, universal health care system. Republican leadership is fond of calling that socialism, and corporate Democrats talk the talk, but they do not walk the walk. It's part of the reason that I will never take a penny of corporate PAC money ever as long as I live. It is legalized bribery, and it is killing Americans. We don't need health insurance as a middleman. We don't need them telling us, after what our doctor tells us we need, what we can have. This is a horrible system that leaves people broke, and it leaves people sick, and it leaves a lot of people without any care at all. We, the people, have buying power, 360 million of us, and we need a system that honors that. We need to kick down the doors of Big Pharma together and demand better prices. That's 360 million people, and we are paying more than what they pay in Europe after our tax money goes to develop the majority of these drugs. I am sick and tired of bake sales for children with cancer. Vote me in as your healthcare advocate in Congress. The medical industry can still make a profit as long as we don't go bankrupt and as long as they stop killing us. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
We could easily expand Medicaid and Medicare the way Washington State has, and that would definitely allow access to more people across the country. One underserved group that is not getting any attention whatsoever, however, is disabled veterans. Most people don't know that VA healthcare is the worst level of healthcare, below even Medicaid and Medicare in this country. And disabled veterans are forced into it no matter what. Even having Medicaid, the VA can override Medicaid and say you cannot use that. We need to improve access for our veterans to at least the quality that other people on the Medicaid system have. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Ann Marie. Question 8. The issue is climate change. What policies and innovations are most effective in reducing carbon emissions and transitioning to renewable energy sources? Rick, you will take the question, and Ann Marie, you will respond.
Well, transitioning to green energy is a smart idea across the board. It is one that we need to approach with caution, though. Right now, we are losing large amounts of agricultural land to the building of solar panels and other green infrastructure. This is, while needed, it's something that can severely cause our country damage through agricultural issues. Sorry. We, as a country, do not need to sacrifice agricultural or ranch land for our energy infrastructure. We have an abundance of dry land, desert areas where we can construct these green energy sources. And furthermore, there are ways of constructing solar panels and things above cropland to not actually take out more than, say, 20%. I'd be in favor of pushing for legislation that required any energy infrastructure companies buying land to try to preserve at least 75% of cropland when doing that in order to maintain our agriculture while building our energy independence. Thank you.
Thank you. Ann Marie.
Well, we're not going to disagree on that, that's for sure. We are getting to the point in this country where there is a general consensus that the Industrial Revolution and our continued use of petroleum products are causing havoc on the environment, which also means havoc on our health. Our children are begging us to do something about this issue. You know, if we continue our reckless energy policy, we're going to be in trouble, and it's going to come quick. The GOP, the people that are really stepping up to the plate on that, see the investment opportunity. Green jobs is green money. So, I mean, I think that we can celebrate that. You know, when the Russians put up Sputnik, we said, I'll see your Sputnik and raise you a Neil Armstrong. You know, there's a reason that Les Schwab doesn't sell wagon wheels anymore. This country is a country of entrepreneurs, small business owners, adventurers, inventors, pioneers. If it can be built, Americans can build it. My campaign is defined by vision. You know, we have entrepreneurship and success and forward movement in our blood. It's sewn into our flag. It is who we are as Americans. And I believe that if anyone can conquer this crisis, we the people can. But if we're going to reach across the aisle, we have to start reaching across the street. You know, we have to embrace each other's ideas and our passions and respect the people who still want hamburgers and milkshakes, man. I think that we can have it all. That's what the American dream is, having it all, but let's have it all together. And let's take that American pride and push it to its limit. Let's see more opportunity, let's protect our environment, and let's thrive together.
Thank you, Ann Marie. Rick.
Sorry, I lost my place. This. I thought.
We're done.
Yeah, well, I thought.
Yeah, we're done.
Yes. Sorry, chalk that one up to the moderator. And I do thank you. And I now would like to introduce our next teams. It will be Carmela Conroy and Renee Holliday. Carmela Conroy will fight for Eastern Washington. Local values guided her previous public service, and that's why she's been endorsed by the National Education Association, Washington State Labor Council, Spokane Mayor Lisa Brown, State Senator Andy Billig, Walla Walla Port Commissioner Andy Schwab, and former Spokane GOP Chair Rick Kuehling. Her team member is Renee Holliday. Renee has written a large number of state legislative bills for a property/water rights group and has written many of bills and House resolutions when she worked in the legislature in Olympia as a legislative aide. UN expert, Christian, MAGA Republican, communist fighter with spine that wins, author, and international Christian radio show host, Renee Holliday. This will be question 9. The issue is economy. What is your approach to handling the national budget deficit? Renee, you will answer, and Carmela, you will respond.
The budget deficit is absolutely outrageous. As we know, it has skyrocketed to upwards of 60 trillion now, if you want actual numbers. And how are we ever going to fix that? I mean, good grief. The spending has been absolutely unregulated, out of control. And instead of actually limiting the spending, we just keep passing more bills for more funding, more and more funding. And then off our money goes to other things around the world to fund other things. You know, we're spending billions of dollars a day on things outside this nation we have no business being involved in, while our own nation is going broke. And so if we want to actually fix this, we need to rein in spending. We need to have accountability for where all of those billions of dollars have gone. And so I'm very, very interested, because Congress has the power of the purse, in limiting what expenses actually are being paid. We don't need to be funding the good majority of everything that we're funding outside of this nation, and especially not until our economy is allowed to recover. And basically, how we can recover that economy fastest is by drilling our own oil. As it stands right now, we have 3 untapped reserves that actually have over 750 years supply of oil at our current usage. That's not energy independence, that's energy dominance that will bring our economy back under control, and people can actually afford to pay their bills again. Imagine that. And yeah, sorry.
Thank you. Carmela.
Boy, I'm not sure where to start with the rebuttal, because there's so much going on there. What I would like to do is restore IRS enforcement funding so that we can catch tax cheats. Until the House majority cut the IRS's budget back again, the IRS was able to bring in $150 billion by going after rich tax cheats who weren't even paying the share that the law requires them to do. We need to balance our tax system so that the people who benefit most from universal public education, from infrastructure, from our system of courts and laws, so that corporations and wealthy individuals and high-income individuals pay their fair share into the system. Right now, working people, 75% of us in Eastern Washington, are paying not only for the very poor who need a little assistance temporarily, but for the very rich as well. And that has got to be shifted back. And yes, it is the House of Representatives that's responsible for setting forth the budget and originating the tax bills. With respect to drilling oil, we already have energy dominance. The United States is the greatest producer of oil and gas in the world. We are contributing mightily to a global market for fossil fuels. We also, cutting spending is something that the Republican Party in the House of Representatives continuously calls for, but never has an idea of how to do it. So, thank you.
Thank you, Carmela, and thank you, Renee. Question 10. The issue is infrastructure. How does investment in infrastructure contribute to economic growth and job creation? And what areas of infrastructure are most in need of development? Carmelo will answer, and then Renee will respond.
Infrastructure investment is a win-win-win proposition, and that's why the last Congress, with a Democratic majority in the House, put so much emphasis on it. And we passed we are now enjoying the benefits of the greatest infrastructure investment since the New Deal. So that's why I will continue to emphasize infrastructure. So 3 principles. A stitch in time saves 9. Harvard economist Larry Summers estimates that we are behind. We've put off needed maintenance and upgrades to the tunes of about $3 trillion. That's like adding $3 trillion to our national debt. The recent Key Bridge collapse in Maryland caused 3 deaths and huge economic loss, and that is an example of upgrades and maintenance that has fallen behind. Failing to invest now will cost us a great deal more down the road. Secondly, we must make hay while the sun shines. Backed up shipping ports, potholed roads, silted up dams, all delay the movement of people and materials, particularly here in Eastern Washington, where almost 90% of our agricultural product is exported. We cannot afford to have things sitting and spoiling. Putting dollars into infrastructure connects producers and consumers, cities and neighborhoods, improves our economy, improves our competitiveness, and best of all, it can create high-paying jobs. And finally, give somebody a fish, they'll eat today, teach them to fish, and they'll feed their entire family. Infrastructure projects will require workforce development. We need more people in the building trades, from residential construction through major infrastructure maintenance, repair and creation, funding for community colleges, trade schools, grants and loans forgiveness for those students, and union organized programs like the Building Trades Pre-Employment Preparation Program is an investment in workers. It's an investment in America that will pay dividends now and for generations to come.
Thank you. Renee.
I'm absolutely for infrastructure support. This nation has all sorts of work that needs to be done to it. Every state complains that everything is falling apart. None of the maintenance is being done. And yet what's interesting is in the last bill where we had $1.3 trillion to spend on infrastructure, a huge portion of that actually went to things that didn't actually fix anything. And the corruption there forced a whole huge portion of that right into people's pockets, especially people that were looking to push green energy. What have we got out of that? Did that fix bridges? Did that fix roads? Did that fix interstate highways? You know, there's things that actually need to be done, not just thrown money at, and then the money never gets to those projects. And so it's important that if we have the money for the infrastructure, that we see to it that the fixes are actually accomplished. We want infrastructure improvement.
And thank you, Carmela. Thank you, Renee. I will now announce Team 6. It is Mr. Matthew Brady Weldy, sorry, I knew that. And Mr. Rick Valentine Flynn. Matthew Brady Weldy has his proudest early achievement was successfully working to have a stronger domestic violence law passed, after which Matthew successfully prosecuted a domestic violence offender for violating the law that Matthew had written. If elected, Matthew aspires to continue his track record of getting things done by drafting and helping to pass effective legislation that solves problems and makes people's lives better. His team member, again, is Mr. Rick Valentine Flynn, who, as we said, has been involved in sustainable agriculture, is involved in water rights and conservation, and lives, again, in a farm community. Thank you. Question 11. The issue is public safety. What are your thoughts on addressing public safety in our region? Matthew will answer, and Rick will respond.
Thank you. One of the most important things we need to do to address public safety in our region is work with the Board of County Commissioners to properly fund the Spokane County Prosecutor's Office and the Spokane County Public Defender's Office. Having worked at the Spokane County Prosecutor's Office for nearly 5 years up till last year, I can speak personally about the difficulties they face due to their salary levels being well below market value and their staffing levels being well below industry standard. There is constant turnover among support staff. There are constant turnover among attorneys. As of March of this year, there were 7 prosecutor attorney positions sitting open that they could not fill because the salaries they offer are far below what are offered by neighboring counties and competing organizations, such as city prosecutors, the Attorney General's office, and things of that nature. The prosecutor's office and the public defender's office cannot keep their people because they lose them to higher paying jobs in the private sector or to other agencies. If you have, the prosecutor's office is like 911. You don't really think about it until you need it. And the public defender's office does a crucial service. As a prosecutor, I understand how important it is for people accused of a crime to have effective representation. The public defender's office needs to be fully staffed and funded so their attorneys have reasonable caseloads, and all the support staff in both agencies need to be doing industry standard workloads, not double the workloads, and for industry standard pay, not substandard pay. We need to start there. Thank you.
And thank you, Matthew. Rick.
While prosecuting criminals is very important, it doesn't save lives the way we need right now. What we need is a solution to the fentanyl crisis that is hitting our country. It's presenting a danger not only to willing users, but also killing kids that simply touch a surface where it was, that was exposed to it. Law enforcement efforts need to focus more on keeping this plague off of our streets. And this includes both local law enforcement and federal agents protecting our borders to keep the drugs from flowing into our country. I think that would save more lives.
And thank you. Our last question is question 12. The issue is education. Do you advocate to support or oppose the Federal Department of Education, and why?
I would completely support the Department of Education. I think education is one of the most important things we have in this country. I worked my whole life to get my degrees. I had to go into the military to afford it. It would be nice if education was easier. I do think that we have a one-size-all-fits-all approach to education that we can change, more customized to get some people heading in the college direction, some people heading in the direction of trade schools. But I definitely would support the Department of Education and all of its efforts to bring our country up to the best in all things, to include education. Thank you.
Thank you. Matthew.
Thank you. Yes, I do support the Department of Education. I do believe that it is important when it comes to education that there be a basic standard nationwide that sets a floor for things such as proper access, appropriate curriculum, and balance equality and equity with regard to spending, so that all across the country, there are minimum standards for the quality of the education, access to education, the quality of the facilities, the quality of the food, and the care provided to the children. And so I think a centralized Department of Education helps make sure that we have nationwide standards. I think that's very important, and I would support that. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew, and thank you, Rick. We have now concluded Section 3 of tonight's debate. Again, thank you all. We are now ready for the fourth section, which is the candidate interest statement. Each candidate will have 1 minute to present their statement. And so we will begin with Rick Valentine Flynn. Please, Rick, let the voters of the 5th Congressional District know what you feel most interested in sharing in your 1 minute.
We've increased the time limit to 2 minutes since we are running ahead of schedule.
Good. Okay. Thank you, timekeeper.
Well, our country is facing a lot of problems, but the one that is looming largest is the rise of AI. It's slated to replace about 30% of jobs in the next few years, which would shoot unemployment up higher than it was during the Great Depression. To avoid economic collapse, I propose to push for a UBI that is set to the poverty line and then pegged to inflation. Then to fund the UBI, a corporate tax could be used that targets increases in profits beyond governmental goals, particularly those tied to AI job losses. This would mean if the government set a goal of 5% inflation and a company had a 10% rise in profits, they'd be taxed a little higher than, say, a company hitting the 5% goal. And that's still a 5% increase in their profits. This would not only avoid economic collapse, but it would provide a permanent mechanism for controlling inflation. It would reduce unemployment, allow families to afford stay-at-home parents, end minimum wage hikes, and reduce or even eliminate the need for other income-based federal aid programs. And since each federal aid program has its own administrative waste, one UBI could reduce the waste and get more money into the pockets of the average citizen. Thank you.
And thank you, Rick. Matthew Brady Weldy. Please let the voters of the 5th Congressional District know what you feel most interested in sharing tonight.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, somewhere in our great district, recently someone purchased their first home and moved in and got the keys, reaching a goal they worked long and hard to achieve. Somewhere else in our great district, someone recently got a new job, the first job in a career that they studied and worked hard to obtain. Somewhere else in our great district, someone is celebrating a milestone in their recovery, whether it's 30 days sober, 60 days sober, maybe a year sober. When we see a person reach the end of a difficult climb and make it to the top of the mountain, we should celebrate. When we see a person complete a difficult climb and make it out of a hole they were in and have their feet on solid ground, we should celebrate that just as much. Yes, we have things in our country we need to address and problems we need to solve. But America is already great. And any problems that we can face, we can accomplish if we embrace the possible. Many times I've seen victims and survivors of domestic violence emerge from abusive relationships and make that transition, climb out of that hole, and find themselves in safe and stable environments. It's inspiring. Anything can be accomplished if we embrace the possible. And so I'm asking you to join me in embracing the possible, the politics of optimism. Put the swords away, reject the politics of grievance, reject the politics of pessimism, get on board, vote Weldy so I can get to work. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Carmela Conroy, please let the voters of the 5th Congressional District know what you feel most interested in sharing.
All right, as an occupational hazard, I can run long, so I'm going to thank people up front so that I don't have to rush that at the end. I want to thank the organizers for making this forum possible. I know that there was a lot of work that went into that, and herding cats does indeed come to mind as an analogy. I'd also like to thank the viewers, both the viewers who are here today in this room, as well as the people who are watching on television or on Facebook Live. Washington State has a juggle primary, which is a fantastic thing for democracy because it means the parties have less influence over who goes forward than regular voters do. However, what it does mean with a jungle primary with 11 candidates is that because so few people turn out in primaries, very few voters will decide who goes forward to the general election so that there are 2 out of the 11 candidates in this field. So thank you for paying attention. Please pay attention. Very few people will determine it. Decide early and support your candidates that you want to see represent you in Congress just as soon as you make up your mind. So earlier there was a mention of I-90, the Eisenhower Expressway system being built in the 50s. It was also built in the 60s. My grandfather worked on the stretch of I-90 that came through town. And I remember as a little kid standing on the stub of I-90 and looking out and seeing the possibility of what that might mean for getting, being able to head east or head west and how fast it would be. And we can see an echo of that in the North-South Freeway now. About 30 years later, I had the privilege of working for Tom Foley at the U.S. Embassy in Tokyo, and he stressed to us that as government employees, no matter what our role was, our job wasn't just to talk about problems, it was to solve them. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to be your next congressional representative because I'm ready to do the work now. I was born and raised here. I voted here my entire life. I've got global experience and I want to bring global ideas to the table so that we can go on being, providing the American dream to American kids today that I enjoyed as I was growing up as a blue-collar kid in the Spokane Valley. Thank you.
And thank you, Carmela. Renee Holliday, please let the voters of the 5th Congressional District know what you feel most interested in sharing.
For the past 18 years, I have stood in between communist programs from the United Nations that came in to destroy people's property rights and water rights. I stood between those attacks and I defended them and I won multiple times. My history is standing up for those people and saving them from these egregious crimes that are absolutely unconstitutional. They wanted my farm as well. I fought them off and I won because they threatened to take my farm. They threatened to fine me in an unconstitutional, unlawful manner of $10,000 per day until I complied. And if I didn't comply in that time, they would take my whole farm and throw me, my family, and my horses off my farm. Well, I showed them the law. I made them adhere to the law of the Constitution, and I pushed them back. And I didn't lose. I didn't lose my property. I didn't lose any money. I took the same defense for everyone else in that position because these UN programs are absolutely egregious and they're pervasive. They're unconstitutional in every regard. That's why I win, because I know the law and I stand on the Constitution and on the truth. I've written 2 books about it. It has not been fun in the past 18 years, having to go to bat and try to defend people that are ready to have their property stolen from them because of these unconstitutional UN programs. This is happening currently all over Eastern Washington. Like I said, Farm Bureau board members are facing this right now. Board members. I spoke to 3 of them. 3 of them are facing DOE, 1 threatening the same exact thing they threatened me with, $10,000 a day and complying with unconstitutional regulations and mandates. Well, guess what? I am a UN expert. This is what happens at the national level, at the international level, and I can actually point out where it's illegal and hold people to the law. The UN is also paying all of the illegal invaders to come across the border. The UN is using our money, paying the illegal invaders $1,200 per month. Yeah, it's true. It's true. I'm a researcher. And so, oh, will I still get my 2 minutes? Thank you. She's consistent. And so I've written 2 books about it, several bills, and I plan to continue to defend the rest of Eastern Washington at the federal and international level. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. Ann Marie Danimus. Please let the voters of the 5th Congressional District know what you feel most interested in sharing.
Thank you so much. I own a business I own a small firm, in marketing and business development. My campaign is really defined by a vision of prosperity for all Americans, bringing opportunity back and leaving no one behind. I am the only candidate in this race who has made the pledge to never take a penny of corporate money. And as we move through these issues and these concerns that face this nation, that face us in our homes and our everyday lives, you can almost follow the money and go back to where corporate influence and congressional members have taken money and time and again have chosen the corporations that are funding their campaigns instead of the people that they are supposed to represent. We, the people, a nation by and for the people, can only have true representation if the needs of the people are met and not corporations. My vision of prosperity begins with a fight for universal health care, green jobs through climate action, public education, rural development, and strong unions. I'm the first disabled candidate to run for this office, having survived a double transplant, kidney pancreas. I get asked that and forget to mention it. I will put special focus on the disabled, on veterans, on senior citizens by eliminating the roadblocks to proper care, and for people of color. Black lives matter in the hospital as much as they do in everyday streets. If anyone is talking about the economy with respect to the last 4 or 8 years, they have no business talking about the economy, because this is a 40-year problem since trickle-down economics was introduced. We need to reduce, eliminate the ability for corporations to do stock buybacks, which was legal until 10b-18 when Reagan put that in motion. I am not a career politician. I have spent most of my life working with small businesses, charities, and being a community activist, and I will stand for you, because this is not really about right or left. This is about top or bottom, and the reason we're at each other's throats is because we're broke and we're frustrated. And it is about time that we brought the aggregate wealth of this country back to the middle class and the working class. And I am the woman to do that for you. I will represent you with all my heart, all my soul. I will never take a penny of their money, and you will always come first. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann Marie. And thank you. This concludes our debate. And let's hold our applause until the end while we, as we thank with all sincerity our candidates, again, who are spending their time, their resources, and their efforts to take on the problems that confront us. Chairs from both political parties who have come from 6 counties, and volunteers from every constituency that we have amongst us. Indivisibles, Braver Angels, the Girl Scouts, public libraries, CMTV and TVW television networks, South Hill Community Center, and you, our voting audience. And remember to register to vote at votewa.org. And let me give my personal thanks to Louis Charbonneau and Paula Landsberger for the excellent work as timekeepers. Again, and thank you. Debate is concluded. So thank you. Now you may applause.